The next few days at school felt completely different, like a heavy storm had finally passed, leaving behind calm skies. The same hallways that once echoed with laughter at Maya's expense now carried softer voices, curious eyes, and quiet respect. People who used to ignore her now greeted her in the morning. Some smiled shyly, others just nodded as she walked by. Even teachers seemed to look at her differently, with pride maybe or admiration. Maya didn't know exactly what it was, but she could feel it. The story about her and Samantha had spread through every corner of Westfield High, but it wasn't just gossip anymore. It had become a lesson. Students whispered things like, "She didn't even hit her back," and "She handled it like a pro." For the first time, Maya felt a small sense of peace. She hadn't wanted attention, but the truth had a way of shining on its own. Still, not everyone knew how to act around her now. Some of Samantha's old friends avoided her, maybe out of guilt or embarrassment. A few even looked nervous, as if they thought Maya might suddenly fight them too. But Maya just smiled and kept being herself, polite, quiet, focused. She wasn't interested in revenge. She wanted peace. One afternoon during study hall, she noticed Samantha sitting alone by the window. No friends, no laughter, just silence. The same people who used to cheer for her now passed by without a word. Maya hesitated for a moment, then walked over. "Hey," she said softly. Samantha looked up, surprised. "Oh, hi, mind if I sit?" Maya asked. Samantha blinked, confused, but nodded. "Sure." They sat in silence for a few seconds, the sound of pencils scratching around them. Then Samantha sighed. "You didn't have to be nice to me, you know." "After what I did," Maya smiled faintly. "Maybe not. But being kind isn't about what people deserve, and it's about who you choose to be." Samantha looked down. "I was stupid," she said quietly. "I thought being mean made me popular. I didn't realize how small it made me look." Maya didn't say anything at first. She just listened. Then she said gently, "Everyone can change. You just have to want to." For the first time since Maya met her, Samantha smiled. A real, humble smile. "Thanks," she whispered. After that day, something unexpected began to happen. Samantha stopped hanging out with her old crowd. She started sitting with different people. Quieter ones, kind ones. She even began helping out in class. The same girl who once made fun of Maya now volunteered for a school anti-bullying project. When Maya saw her standing in front of the class one morning, speaking about kindness and respect, she couldn't help but smile. It was strange but also beautiful. Change really was possible. By the end of the month, the school principal invited Maya to speak at an assembly about bullying awareness. At first, she was nervous. Standing in front of hundreds of students wasn't easy. But when she saw so many faces looking up at her, some curious, some emotional, some ashamed, and she felt ready, she took a deep breath and said, "Sometimes people hurt others because they don't understand them. Sometimes they're afraid of what's different. But being different isn't something to hide. It's something to be proud of." Her voice grew steadier as she continued. "When people try to bring you down, don't fight hate with hate. Stand tall, be calm. Protect your peace. Because your strength isn't in how loud you are. It's in how strong your heart stays when the world tests it." When she finished, the entire gym fell silent for a moment. And then, applause. Loud, thunderous applause that echoed through the walls. Even teachers stood and clapped. Samantha, sitting near the front, had tears in her eyes. After the assembly, students came up to Maya, thanking her, telling her their own stories. A boy admitted he used to be bullied and had wanted to quit school, but after hearing her, he felt stronger. A girl said Maya gave her courage to speak up. That night when Maya got home, she sat on her bed and thought about everything that had happened. The pain, the humiliation, the fear, and the growth that followed. She realized something powerful. Sometimes the people who try to break you end up building you instead. Before going to sleep, she wrote in her journal, "I came here afraid. Now I stand here strong. I didn't change to fit in. I stayed myself and let others change around me." As the moonlight filled her room, Maya smiled, feeling lighter than she had in weeks. She knew her story wasn't over, but this chapter, at least, had turned into something beautiful. The girl they once mocked had become a symbol of strength, and the bullies who once laughed had learned their greatest lesson. Kindness is more powerful than cruelty, and silence can sometimes speak louder than shouting. The next day at school, the atmosphere felt different. For the first time, people weren't whispering behind Maya's back. They were whispering about her. But not in the same cruel way as before. Everywhere she walked, students looked up curious. Some smiled politely. Others moved aside to let her pass. It felt strange. Just yesterday she had been invisible, or worse, the target of laughter. And now, suddenly, people were watching her with a kind of respect she didn't expect. At first, Maya didn't understand why. She hadn't told anyone about what happened in the hallway. She had tried to keep it quiet. But rumors had their own way of spreading, and this time they worked in her favor. By second period, everyone had heard that Maya had defeated Samantha without throwing a single punch. Some said she used karate moves. Others claimed she was a black belt. A few even whispered that she could break a board with her hand. Maya couldn't help but laugh quietly to herself. None of that was true, at least not completely. Yes, her father had taught her self-defense. Yes, she knew how to protect herself. But she wasn't some kind of superhero. She was just a girl who had learned not to let fear control her. During lunch, Jordan came over to her table again, smiling. "You've gone viral," he joked. "Half the school's talking about you. Even the seniors are impressed." Maya shook her head. "That's not exactly what I wanted." Jordan grinned. "Maybe not, but it's what you earned. You stood up for yourself, and that's something most people here are too scared to do." Before Maya could reply, she noticed Samantha and her two friends walk into the cafeteria. This time, the entire room seemed to notice them too, but not with admiration. Students whispered behind their backs. Some even moved their trays to different tables. Samantha looked uncomfortable. For once, she didn't look confident or proud. She looked lost. Their eyes met for a brief second. Samantha quickly looked away, her face red. Maya could tell she was embarrassed, not because of what happened, but because everyone now knew she had been the bully. Later that day, in gym class, the truth began to unfold even more. Coach Reynolds, who had heard bits of the hallway story, asked Maya to demonstrate a few basic self-defense moves for a new safety program the school was planning. At first, she hesitated. "I don't want to make a scene," she said softly, but the coach smiled kindly. "You're not making a scene, Maya. You're helping others learn something important. You have skill. Use it for good." After a moment of thought, she agreed. When the class gathered around, Maya stepped to the center of the gym floor. "I'm not here to show off," she said, her voice calm but strong. "I just want everyone to know how to stay safe and how to stay in control." She demonstrated how to block, how to dodge, and how to use balance instead of brute force. Every move was precise, smooth, confident, graceful. Her classmates watched in awe. Samantha, sitting near the back, couldn't look away. She realized then that Maya hadn't humiliated her on purpose. She had simply defended herself, and done it with control, respect, and discipline. After class, Samantha walked up to her slowly. For the first time, there was no anger in her face, only honesty. "Hey," she said quietly. "About the other day, I'm sorry." Maya studied her for a moment. She could see that the apology was real. "It's okay," Maya said softly. "I don't hold grudges. But I hope you understand why what you did was wrong." Samantha nodded. "Yeah, I do now." That evening, Maya stayed after school for a few minutes. She walked past the trophy cases near the main hallway, glass displays filled with awards, medals, and photographs. And there on one of the boards, she noticed something new. Someone had posted a note, handwritten, taped neatly under a picture of the school mascot. It said, "Strength isn't in how hard you hit. It's in how calm you stay when others try to break you." There was no name, but Maya smiled. Somehow she knew exactly who had written it. When she got home that day, her father was waiting in the living room, polishing one of his old Marine medals. He looked up as she entered. "Heard you had an interesting week," he said with a knowing smile. Maya laughed softly. "News travels fast," her father nodded. "You handled yourself well. I'm proud of you." "Thanks, Dad," she said quietly. "I didn't want to fight. I just wanted to stand up for myself." He placed the medal down and looked at her seriously. "And that's the difference between power and strength. You used your power to stay peaceful. That's what real warriors do." Maya felt her eyes sting with emotion. For the first time in a long while, she felt seen, not as the new black girl, but as herself. At school, the story of Maya Thompson became more than just gossip. It became a lesson, a reminder that the quietest people often carry the strongest hearts. And though the bullies had started the story, Maya was the one who finished it, with courage, with grace, and with truth. The next morning, the school halls buzzed with whispers. News spread quickly. Everyone had heard that Samantha had slapped the new girl. Some said Maya cried and ran away. Others claimed she called her father, who was in the military. No one really knew what had happened. But what no one expected was how calmly Maya walked into school that day. Head held high, face still slightly red, but eyes shining with quiet confidence. She didn't hide. She didn't look down. She walked straight to her locker like nothing had happened. The bullies standing nearby noticed her. Samantha crossed her arms. "Wow," she said loudly. She actually came back. Maya didn't respond. She just opened her locker, took out her books, and began walking to class. Her silence somehow irritated Samantha even more. "Hey," she called after her. "I'm talking to you." Maya turned around slowly. "And I heard you," she said softly. "But I don't waste words on people who only use theirs to hurt others." The hallway went quiet. A few students nearby stared in surprise. No one had ever spoken to Samantha like that before. Samantha's face turned red with anger. "You think you're tough?" she said, stepping forward Maya's side. "No, but I think you should stop before you regret it." That made Samantha laugh, a loud, mocking laugh. "Oh, I regret it already," she said sarcastically. "Regret that I didn't hit harder?" Her two friends chuckled nervously. The tension in the hallway thickened, and then it happened again. Samantha moved closer, shoving Maya's shoulder, harder this time. Maya stumbled a step back but caught her balance easily. Samantha smirked. "What are you going to do, new girl? Cry again?" Maya looked her straight in the eyes and said quietly, "No, I'm going to show you why that was a big mistake." Before anyone could react, Samantha reached forward to shove her again, but this time, Maya moved, fast. In one smooth motion, she stepped aside, grabbed Samantha's wrist gently but firmly and turned it slightly. Not enough to hurt her, just enough to stop her movement. Samantha gasped in shock. The other students who had gathered around watched in stunned silence. Maya let go and stepped back, calm as ever. "I told you," she said, "don't touch me again." Samantha tried to hide her embarrassment. "Oh, so you know a few moves? You think that makes you special?" But Maya didn't respond with anger or pride. She simply said, "My father taught me to defend myself, not to fight. You can keep being cruel if you want, but I won't be your victim." Something in her voice, quiet yet unshakable, made everyone fall silent. Samantha's friends shifted uncomfortably, realizing things had gone too far. A teacher appeared at the end of the hall, drawn by the noise. "What's going on here?" he demanded. No one spoke. Samantha looked down, suddenly unsure of what to say. Maya took a deep breath and said calmly, "Nothing serious, sir. Just a misunderstanding." The teacher frowned but nodded slowly. Then everyone should get to class. As the crowd began to scatter, Maya walked away, her posture straight, her steps steady. Behind her, Samantha's friends whispered. One of them said softly, "You shouldn't have hit her." "She's not like the others." Samantha didn't reply. For the first time, she felt a strange, unfamiliar feeling. Guilt. That afternoon, as Maya sat in her science class, she could feel people glancing at her. But this time, it wasn't mockery. It was curiosity. Respect, even. Jordan, the boy she had met earlier in the cafeteria, leaned over and whispered, "That was amazing. You didn't even lose your cool." Maya smiled faintly. "That's what they taught me. Never lose control. Strength isn't about hitting back. It's about knowing when not to." After school, she went to the park to clear her head. The sky was painted in shades of orange and gold. She sat on a bench watching the trees sway in the breeze. She thought about her father's lessons, the long evenings practicing balance, focus, and patience. He used to say, "You can't control what people do to you, but you can control how you react." That's real power. For the first time, she truly understood what he meant. That night, as Maya lay in bed, her phone buzzed. It was a message from an unknown number. When she opened it, her eyes widened slightly. It was from Samantha. The message read, "I didn't know you were like that. I shouldn't have hit you. Sorry." Maya stared at the message for a moment, then smiled softly. She didn't reply, not yet. She didn't need to, because deep down she knew something had changed. The bullies had finally seen her for who she really was. Not just the new black girl they could mock, but a strong, disciplined, and fearless person who refused to be broken. They had attacked her thinking she was weak, but that was their biggest mistake, and it was a mistake they would never forget. 3 days had passed since Maya started her new school, and each day felt heavier than the last. The whispers hadn't stopped. They had only grown louder. Every time she entered a classroom, she could feel the air shift, like people were waiting for her to make a mistake. Still, she tried to stay positive. That morning, she wore her favorite blue hoodie and promised herself that she wouldn't let anyone ruin her day. "I'll just focus on my work," she said quietly while walking to school. "I'll prove I belong here." When she reached her locker, she noticed something strange. A small sticky note was attached to it. The handwriting was messy, but the message was clear. "Go back where you came from." For a moment, Maya froze. Her hands trembled slightly as she peeled the note off. She looked around, but the hallway was crowded. Students rushing to class, laughing, talking, completely unaware of how much one small note could hurt. She took a deep breath, crumpled it up, and threw it away. "Not today," she whispered. But fate had other plans. Later that day, during the lunch break, Maya went to her locker again to grab her history book. The hallway was quieter than usual. Most students were in the cafeteria. As she turned the corner, she suddenly heard giggling. She looked up and saw them, Samantha and her 2 friends standing near her locker. Maya hesitated. Something in their eyes told her that this wasn't just another round of whispers. Samantha smirked. "Well, look who it is. The brave little new girl." Maya's heart started pounding, but she stood her ground. "Can you move?" "I need to get my book." Samantha stepped closer. "You really think you can just walk in here and act like you're better than us?" "I never said that," Maya replied calmly. "I just want to be left alone." The second girl, a tall one with red hair, laughed. "Left alone? Then maybe you shouldn't try so hard to get attention." Maya frowned. "I'm not trying to get attention. I'm just minding my business." But before she could say more, Samantha shoved her shoulder. It wasn't hard, but it was enough to make her step back. "Don't talk back to me," Samantha said sharply. Maya's breath caught in her throat. She looked around, hoping someone would appear, a teacher, a student, anyone. But the hallway stayed empty. Samantha's friends stood behind her, whispering and giggling like this was some sort of game. "Come on, Sam," one of them said. "She's not worth it." But Samantha didn't stop. She moved closer again, anger flashing in her eyes. "You think you're better because you talk smart? Because teachers like you don't belong here, Maya." Maya felt the sting of tears, but she refused to cry in front of them. "You don't even know me," she said softly. That seemed to annoy Samantha even more. "Oh, I know enough." Then without warning, she shoved Maya harder, this time right in the chest. Maya stumbled backward and hit the locker with a loud clang. Before she could react, Samantha's hand came up, and in one quick motion she hit Maya across the face. The sound echoed through the hallway. For a moment, time stopped. Even Samantha's friends gasped. Maya's cheek burned and her eyes filled with shock. Her breathing quickened, but she didn't cry. Instead, something inside her shifted. Her father's voice echoed in her memory, the words he had repeated so many times. "Stay calm. Protect yourself. Never start a fight, but don't let anyone break you." Maya straightened slowly, her eyes meeting Samantha's. The calm in her gaze made Samantha step back just a little. "You shouldn't have done that," Maya said quietly, her voice low, steady, and colder than before. For a few seconds, no one spoke. Then footsteps echoed down the hall. A teacher appeared at the far end, and the bullies quickly tried to act innocent. "We were just talking," Samantha muttered nervously, but Maya didn't say a word. She picked up her fallen book, closed her locker, and walked away, silent, strong, and composed. Behind her, Samantha whispered to her friends, "What's her problem?" But deep down, even she felt uneasy. There was something about the way Maya looked at her, not scared, not angry, just sure, that made her stomach twist. That night, when Maya got home, she stood in front of her bathroom mirror. A faint red mark still showed on her cheek. She touched it gently but didn't cry. Instead, she whispered, "You hit the wrong girl." Because what Samantha didn't know, what nobody knew, was that Maya had been trained for years in self-defense by her father, a Marine who taught her discipline, balance, and how to stand her ground without losing control. The bullies thought they'd hurt her, but in truth they had only woken up her strength. And soon, They would find out exactly who Maya Thompson really was. The next morning, Maya woke up early, determined to make her second day better than the first. She put extra effort into her uniform, tied her hair neatly, and gave herself a pep talk in the mirror. "Just be yourself," she whispered. "Don't let anyone bring you down." The sun was shining brightly as she walked to school, her backpack bouncing lightly on her shoulders. She hummed a song her mom used to sing every morning before work. It made her feel calm. For a few moments, she actually felt hopeful. But as soon as she entered the hallway, that feeling began to fade. The same group of girls from yesterday, the ones who had spoken to her under the tree, were standing near the lockers. They noticed her instantly. Their leader, the blonde, one named Samantha, gave a quick smirk and whispered something to the others. All three of them started laughing quietly as Maya walked past. She tried to ignore it, pretending she hadn't heard a thing, but she could feel their eyes following her. One of the girls coughed loudly and said, "Watch out, the new girl might trip on her own hair." The others laughed. Maya's heart sank a little, but she kept walking. In English class, things got worse. Mrs. Collins asked everyone to read a short paragraph aloud. When it was Maya's turn, she stood up and began reading clearly. Her voice was soft, but confident. Still, from the back of the room, someone whispered, "Why does she talk like that?" followed by quiet giggles. Maya froze for a moment but continued reading. When she finished, Mrs. Collins clapped lightly. "Well done, Maya," she said with a smile. But as Maya sat down, she heard a faint mocking voice say, "Teacher's pet." By lunchtime, she was tired, not from schoolwork, but from pretending not to care. She decided to sit in the cafeteria this time instead of outside. Maybe being around more people would make things easier. She picked up her tray, found a seat in a quiet corner, and began eating. After a few minutes, she noticed a boy sitting across from her. He smiled kindly. "Hey, you're the new girl, right? Maya?" She nodded, smiling back. "Yeah, I just moved here. I'm Jordan," he said. "Don't worry about people around here. They like to test newcomers, but they'll get over it." For the first time that day, Maya felt a little better. They talked for a while about books and movies. But just as she began to relax, a loud laugh came from behind her. Samantha and her friends had entered the cafeteria. "Oh, look," Samantha said, pointing at Maya. "She's making new friends already. How sweet." Her voice dripped with sarcasm. Jordan frowned. "Ignore them," he whispered. But ignoring them wasn't easy. The girls walked by her table and one of them accidentally bumped Maya's shoulder, spilling a bit of juice onto her notebook. "Oops," the girl said, pretending to be shocked. "You should really watch where you put your stuff." Maya bit her lip. She wanted to shout, but she remembered her father's advice. Stay calm. Control the situation. Don't let it control you. She took a napkin, wiped her notebook, and said quietly, "It's fine." Jordan shook his head. "They shouldn't get away with that," he muttered. Maya smiled weakly. "It's okay, I've handled worse." That afternoon during gym class, the teasing continued. When they were asked to form teams, no one picked Maya until the very end. One girl even whispered, "She'll slow us down." Still, Maya didn't complain. She joined her team and gave her best effort. She ran fast, played fair, and followed instructions perfectly. But even when she scored a point, the same girls rolled their eyes and muttered something cruel. By the end of the day, Maya's chest felt heavy. She had never done anything to deserve their hate, yet it kept coming. On her walk home, she kicked a small pebble down the sidewalk, watching it bounce and roll until it disappeared. "Why do they hate me?" she whispered to herself. When she got home, her mom noticed her silence. "Tough day, sweetheart?" Maya shrugged. "Just people being people." Her mom put a hand on her shoulder. "People can be unkind when they don't understand someone. But remember, you don't have to fight them to prove your worth. You just have to stay true to yourself." That night, as Maya lay in bed, she replayed every mean word in her mind. It hurt, but deep down she knew she couldn't let it change her. She promised herself that no matter what they did, she wouldn't lose her kindness. She would rise above it, even if it meant standing alone for a while. But little did she know the bullying was only beginning. The next few days would test her patience, her strength, and everything she believed in. And soon, the same girls who laughed at her would realize they had made a very big mistake. It was Maya Thompson's first day at her new school, and everything felt different. The long hallways, the buzzing chatter of students, and the smell of fresh books made her both nervous and excited. She held her backpack tightly, walking slowly while looking for her classroom. She had moved to this new town just a week ago because her father's job in the military required him to transfer again. For Maya, changing schools was nothing new, but each time felt like starting life all over again. Her skin glowed in the soft morning light, and her thick curls bounced with every step. Some students turned their heads as she passed by. A few smiled politely while others whispered or stared too long. Maya noticed, but she pretended not to. She had learned that not everyone welcomes a new face, especially someone who looks or talks a little different. As she entered her first class, the teacher, Mrs. Collins, gave her a warm smile. "Class, this is Maya Thompson. She's just joined us, so please make her feel welcome." The class murmured a quick hello, and Maya smiled shyly before finding an empty seat at the back. She sat quietly, taking out her notebook and pen, trying not to draw attention to herself, but attention found her anyway. At the desk next to her sat a group of girls who whispered and giggled among themselves. Maya caught bits of their conversation, words like new girl, weird hair, and army kid. She looked down, pretending to focus on her notes. She didn't want trouble. All she wanted was to study hard, make a few friends, and maybe join the school's science club. During lunch, Maya sat alone under a big oak tree near the playground. She unwrapped her sandwich and took small bites while watching groups of students laughing and talking together. She missed her old friends, especially her best friend, Alana, who used to tell her, "Don't ever let people's opinions change your smile." Remembering that, Maya took a deep breath and smiled to herself. Suddenly, a shadow fell over her lunchbox. She looked up and saw 3 girls standing there. They were dressed fashionably, their hair styled perfectly, and each of them had that confident, almost proud look that came from being popular. The one in the middle with bright blonde hair spoke first. "You're the new girl, right? From the city?" Maya nodded politely. "Yeah, I just moved here last week." The girl tilted her head. You talk different. Where are you from?" "Virginia," Maya replied softly. The girls exchanged glances and giggled. "Well," the blonde one said, "welcome to Westfield High. Hope you don't mind how things work around here." Her tone had a strange edge. Not exactly friendly. Not openly mean either, but something in between. Maya smiled anyway. "Thanks," she said, though the girls had already turned to leave. She sighed and looked back down at her sandwich. Later in the day, as classes continued, Maya noticed that whenever she raised her hand to answer a question, the same girls would whisper or laugh quietly. She tried to ignore them, but it hurt. She wasn't used to this kind of attention. Back at her old school, people respected her for her good grades and kind attitude. Here it felt like everything about her, her skin, her voice, her background, made her stand out in a way she didn't want to. When the final bell rang, Maya walked out of the building slowly. Her father was waiting for her in the car, smiling proudly. "How was your first day, champ?" he asked. Maya forced a smile. "It was okay, Dad, just new, you know?" He nodded knowingly. "It always is. But remember what I told you. Every new place is a chance to show them who you really are." She looked out the window as they drove home, thinking about his words. Maybe he was right. Maybe people would eventually see that she wasn't just the new girl. She was smart, strong, and kind. She had dreams, big ones. She wanted to be a doctor someday to help people and make a difference. That night, Maya sat at her desk doing homework, determined to start strong. But in the back of her mind, she couldn't shake the uneasy feeling that tomorrow might be harder. She could already sense that not everyone wanted her there, and she didn't know why. Still, she promised herself she wouldn't let fear win. She whispered quietly, "I've handled worse. I can handle this too." She didn't know it yet, but this new chapter in her life would test her strength in ways she'd never imagined. The same people who laughed at her now would one day see who she really was. As she turned off her light and lay down, The sounds of crickets filled the night air. A single tear rolled down her cheek, not of sadness but of quiet determination. Deep down she already knew. This was just the beginning of something big. Weeks passed and life at Westfield High slowly began to settle into something new, something better. The halls didn't echo with cruel laughter anymore. The whispers that once followed Maya had turned into smiles, greetings, and quiet respect. But for Maya, peace wasn't enough anymore. She wanted to do something more, something that would make sure no one else ever felt the pain she once did. One morning, her homeroom teacher, Mrs. Jenkins, approached her after class. "Maya," she said warmly, "the principal told me how proud he is of you. We're organizing an anti-bullying awareness week next month, and we'd love for you to speak at the assembly." Maya froze. Speak? In front of the entire school? The idea made her stomach twist. She wasn't used to crowds or microphones. But then she thought about all the quiet kids, the ones who kept their heads down, who didn't speak up because they were afraid. Maybe, she thought, I could be their voice. She looked up at Mrs. Jenkins and said softly, "Okay, I'll do it." The day of the assembly came faster than she expected. The gym was packed. Hundreds of students sitting shoulder to shoulder, the sound of whispers echoing off the walls. Even some parents and teachers had come to watch. Maya stood backstage, her palms sweating, her heart pounding so loudly she could almost hear it. She clutched the small note card she'd written her speech on the night before, her handwriting neat and careful. When the principal introduced her, the room went quiet. Maya stepped onto the stage. The bright lights made it hard to see faces, but she could feel every eye on her. For a second she wanted to turn and run, but then she remembered that day. The pain, the fear, the strength she found when she needed it most. She took a deep breath, straightened her back, and began. "Hi, everyone. Most of you know who I am now," she said, her voice a little shaky at first. "But when I first came here, no one really knew me. Some people didn't want to. They just saw my skin, my quietness, and decided that was enough to judge me." The room was silent. I didn't fight back when people laughed or said mean things. I thought staying quiet would keep me safe. But silence can feel like a cage when it's built from fear. She paused, her voice growing steadier. Then one day everything changed. Someone crossed a line. And in that moment I realized something important. You don't have to raise your voice or use your fists to be strong. Sometimes strength is just standing your ground with peace in your heart. A few heads nodded in the crowd. Even from the stage she could see Samantha sitting near the front, her eyes glistening. I learned that people can be cruel when they don't understand you. But you can't control what they say, only how you respond. I could have fought back, but I chose not to. Not because I was weak, but because I refused to let hate win. The gym remained still. Maya's words floated in the air like soft echoes. She continued, "If you've ever felt like you didn't belong, if you've ever been hurt or laughed at for being different, please know you're not alone. You are enough, just the way you are." Her voice cracked slightly, but she didn't stop. "And if you've ever been the one laughing at someone else, I want you to think about what that laughter costs. Because it costs more than you know." She smiled gently. "The truth is we all have two choices every day, to be kind or to be cruel. The easy path is cruelty, but the brave one is kindness." When she finished, the gym was silent for a heartbeat, then suddenly applause filled the air. Not polite clapping, real thunderous applause that seemed to shake the floor. Students stood up cheering. Teachers wiped their eyes. Even the principal clapped the loudest. Maya felt tears sting her eyes, but this time they weren't from pain, they were from pride. After the assembly, students she'd never spoken to before came up to her. One girl said, "I was bullied last year. You made me feel seen." Another boy whispered, "I used to make fun of people too, but I'm done." "You changed how I think." Even Samantha came forward, hugging her tightly. "You didn't just forgive me," she said. "You helped me become someone better." That night when Maya got home, her father was waiting by the door. "I watched the live stream," he said, smiling proudly. "You were amazing, sweetheart," Maya laughed softly. "I was terrified," he shook his head. "Courage isn't the absence of fear, Maya. It's doing what's right even when you're scared." She thought about that as she looked out her window later, the night sky glowing with stars. Maybe that was what life was about, not erasing fear or pain, but learning how to rise above it. The next morning, she walked into school to find something incredible. The quote she'd said, "You don't have to be loud to be strong," was printed on posters all over the building. Students wore badges with her words. The school had even renamed the event the Maya Thompson Courage Week. Maya smiled, her heart full. She hadn't planned to become a symbol. She just wanted to survive. But in surviving, she had inspired others to do the same. And as she walked down the hall, hearing laughter, real, kind laughter, she realized something beautiful. Sometimes, the smallest voice can start the biggest change.